on a beach in the sun. One left footprints, the other left none. One was a man that no man obeys, the other a god from the ancient days. Look, said the man, how my kind make war. I summoned you here to ask what for. For wealth or land, the god replies, or life or freedom or some king's lies. The sun is also a warrior. Knowledge can also destroy, nor can the kindest will preserve you from the kill. Not all of wisdom brings joy. 4 of those 5, the first one said, are not enough to appease the dead. To save my world, all this strife must cease. So now I bid you to conjure peace. The god said yes, though it grieves me sore, for I was also a god of war. And I remember what you forget. 4 of those 5 you may still regret. The sun is also a warrior. Knowledge can also destroy, nor can the kindest will preserve you from the kill. Not all of wisdom brings joy. He raised his voice and he raised his hand. All strife stopped at the god's command. No voice ventured an angry word, no hand struck and no weapon stirred. In time, the man called the old god back. Look, he cried, what my people lack. One Lord rules over all the earth, and we're all his slaves from the hour of birth. The sun is also a warrior. Knowledge can also destroy, nor can the kindest will preserve you from the kill. Not all of wisdom brings joy. He owns all wealth and he owns all land. We starve and die under his command. He speaks the truth and he gives us peace. But all that I hope for is our release. The old god said, this is what you willed. Only thus is your wish fulfilled. War's 5 sources I took away, yet I will give 4 of them back today. The sun is also a warrior. Knowledge can also destroy, nor can the kindest The sun is also a warrior. No knowledge can also destroy, nor can the kindest will preserve you from the guilt. Not all of wisdom brings joy, not all of wisdom brings joy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the International Pagan Music Association, Who Am I? And today we have Leslie Fish with us. She has a wonderful song out. She is a singer and songwriter, and really want to get to talking with her. You just listened to her song, but first, I want to ask you, Leslie, how did you get into music?
I was born into it. My great-grandmother was a Chippewa Indian medicine singer.
Okay.
And she didn't stay on the res because she saw there was no financial future in it. So she married a Métis, which is a French and Indian man, who, on the promise that he would take her away to the big city, well, he was half honest. The city he took her to, he took her off the res, but the city he took her to was not New York City. It was Elmira, New York. And there he dumped her, 5 children.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, and but she didn't give up. She got a job singing in a local nightclub. I think the only one in Elmira. And she had 2 children, 2 daughters, and she raised one. Well, she taught them both music the way she learned it, and one of them was a more practical sort. Married a rich farmer and set herself up as first a bed and breakfast, and then an inn, and then a small but respectable hotel, and became a businesswoman. The other one became a musician and sang in local bars and taverns and hopefully upper class eateries. And she married the ne'er-do-well second son of a Scottish noble family, and and her fate was to be no better than her mother's. He dumped her with 5 children. Mm-hmm. She's obliged to farm out the children to her sister, and she went to work again as a lounge singer, and she taught her children music too. I was my mother was the one who it took on. Mm-hmm. So my mother became a professional singer, and she took up singing in lounges, but she was a little more careful about who she married.
Yeah.
She got a husband who was a solid, Reformed Jewish dentist, and that was my dad. So, but she raised me the way she'd been raised. That is, she sang to me from the time I was in her belly, and every night since, every night afterwards. So I grew up with music in my head. On nights when she wasn't singing me to sleep with Brahms' Lullaby, which I still remember the tune to this day. I just can't remember all the words. But she would, as soon as she wanted to leave, she'd turn on the radio to a classical music channel, and fall asleep with that in my ears. I remember I could sing before I could talk. And as soon as I could talk, she started giving me proper music lessons, how to sing. She wanted me to become a pianist, but it wasn't my instrument. My piano just didn't fit it right. And when I turned 16, I insisted to get me a guitar. That's my instrument. And grudgingly, my parents did. Then Mother began to slowly give up her hopes of teaching me to be a lyric soprano who would sing grand opera at the Met, and had to put up with the realization that I was a natural contralto. And my favorite songs were folk music, that awful cowboy music. But when I got to college, well, actually before that, as I was studying folk music, I ran into the name of Woody Guthrie. And the more I studied his career, I realized that I recognized those songs. when I'd been a little girl, my mother had sent me to a dance class at the Newark YMCA. And the dance teacher, a woman named Marjorie Mazia, had this fellow come in, a little curly-haired, silver-eyed man who played the guitar. And he could play songs that would make all the kids get up and dance, no matter how much they wanted to bully me as the smallest or whatever else. And I remember those songs to this day. First one I remember distinctly was "Take Me for a Ride in the Car, Take Me for a Ride in the Car." That was the song that he could play to make the other kids leave off picking on me and dance.
Yeah.
I remember, and I was always grateful. And as I say, I was studying these songs, these history at the back of the Woody Guthrie songbook. There was a patch that says, "For further information, contact Marjorie Mazia," and I realized that's who that silver-eyed man was. And I made effort to find out what had happened to him, where he was, which was he'd already been knocked down by onion scoria, and he was in a hospital in New York. And for the rest of high school, I spent my weekends getting on the bus, going across the river to New York City, getting on the bus, going to King's Hospital, and going to the ward where he was lying, getting progressively worse, and I would sing for him. And he was so bad off he could just barely point to whatever he wanted to think and talk about. He could nod for yes and grunt for no, and that was all the communication we could have. And I tried very hard to code what he was pointing to. And I'd always had a little psychic talent, at least since I was 6 years old. I remember that. And it grew while I was trying to understand Woody. So I got to where he could point in one direction, I could guess a whole sentence of what he meant. Toward the end, you say I'd got to point, and I'd get the whole concept. Then high school ended. I went away to college. I heard that Woody had died, but I still had. I began to get into. Later, I got into psychic studies because I knew I had this peculiar talent that people didn't want to recognize. And the more I read about it, the more I studied, I realized that yes, psychic phenomena are real. And I got into studying parapsychology. I realized I'd gotten my training from Woody Guthrie. So if anybody asks me what tradition of paganism I'm in, I have to say American bardic tradition, and my teacher was Woody Guthrie. And I kept on singing and began writing my own songs. I got into folk music, which is science fiction, specifically science fiction folk music, and covers science fiction, fantasy, and pagan themes. And it just grew from there. I've now written about at least 300 songs and the tunes for a couple hundred more of Kipling's poems. And I have 3 or 4 albums out that are current right now, and others are out of print, but planning for a remake. I also got to writing short stories. I sold a lot of them, and to collections by Daw and Daw and Tor. And somewhere during my college years, as I was studying parapsychology, I stumbled across Isaac Bonowitz's Real Magic. And I and my rest of my study group got into this and decided, all right, let's put together our own coven. And we did. And one of them was a classic scholar, and she insisted, let's take up the worship of the god Mithra. Nobody else has got him. So we did. And it worked. We came up with a rain ritual that if we could all join a circle, drop into trance state, and concentrate on the song, we would reliably get rain. We were onto something here. And after college, we went our separate ways, but I remembered remembered my lessons when I got into seriously being a musician. Then I got invited by a publishing company in California. It's a film publishing company, one of the first, and they invited me out there, and I moved to California and began singing for them, and then later for other publishers. And originally I made my living going around to science fiction conventions and Society for Creative Anachronism gatherings and the occasional pagan gathering, because the pagans couldn't pay as much.
Yeah.
But I would go to conventions and gatherings and sing and sell my records, sell the albums. Until, actually just before the COVID lockdown, the convention circuit hit on hard times. The pagan organizations seemed to hit on hard times, and the conventions closed down. There was no more of them, or only one or two. And when lockdown hit, they all went virtual online, which I wasn't very good at.
Right.
And, as you can see from the fun we had just getting booked up here.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that as well. A lot of the conventions and different gatherings went virtual. I was a part of a few of them, but it was, and the way that it was run, it was a little confusing to me. So I can understand where you're coming from. Many times, if it's not, things can get confusing that way because of so many different things that are going on, especially in a convention. And it would be hard for me because I've been to conventions. I've been to the horror conventions, and I've been to the sci-fi, and I've done, different conventions like that. So it is different versus the real thing and then getting online and doing it digitally. It is very, very different. So oh, you're in your house, you go right ahead. You do what you want to do. I feel that I think that they're starting to come back up, and I think that with conventions coming back up again, I think that will help a lot of people, hopefully. But your song, The Sun, is also a warrior. Where did you get the inspiration to write that and sing that?
Okay, remember that the second group that we put together, when they chose to become Okay, Let's Become a Coven.
Okay.
Because of my roommate, she's dead now, Mary Fruman, she was a classic scholar. And she especially liked the god Mithra. She said, let's take up with him.
Okay.
So we studied his history and his mythology and said, yeah, this is a nice guy, let's call him. And the more we studied and the more we called him, the more we began to see the form of a personality. And this was a sun god, which usually means enlightenment, some connection with cattle, and devotion to truth. Very often a god who can become a patron of the sciences, as he did in Rome, I believe. Still, he's a war god. And we were having a discussion about is it a holy or an unholy alliance between science and war, and between knowledge and war. I went home and thought that out. I thought that over. Realized that, okay, if you are wise, knowledgeable, you have to realize there are times when war is the only choice. And that's what came my chorus line. Not all of wisdom brings joy. There are some hidden choices you have to make. And like a seed crystal, that grew the rest of the song around it. So the god mentioned in the song could be Mithra, could be Apollo. I believe there's there are a couple of other gods who are both sun, wisdom, and wisdom gods who can become war gods if they have to. And that is the general concept I devoted that song to.
It reminds me of the Emperor card in the tarot, where the emperor card, you know, he's sitting there, and he looks relaxed, but he looks like he's, you know, he's got his mind on other things. It's that sort of concept of discernment, of knowing when to act and when not to act, and understanding how much power that you actually carry and the responsibility that is required with that. So yeah, I can see that. With Mithra, I know the surface of Mithra. I've never, you know, that's one of the myths that I've not got into at this certain time in my life, but he's definitely going to be now. Because now I've got to go now, since I'm like, okay, now I've got to go read about this god more. And I find that in reading, it's more than just reading about them. You have to sit with them, you have to get to know them to understand the different aspects and the different facets that they do have. It's many, you know, especially for a lot of people in today's world, they like to see this one image, that this is this image, but in reality, and the way that mythology goes, is there's many images. It's like, it's not just this, there's many, you know, and it encompasses a lot.
They all have mythology attached to them.
Yeah.
Each image has its own story.
Yes. And in learning those mythologies, you can see this big connection that you know you have. And like with some of them, is, you know, like you'll always see a dark goddess present themselves to the hero right before, you know, when he's on his way to do what he is fated to do. He is always visited by a dark goddess to remind him, this is your fate, understand, this is your fate, you know, this is where you're going. So,
and Mithra, according to his own legend, was a dutiful son of his mother. They are not hideous brothers. And she told him, the story is that she used to ride across the sky in a cart drawn by bulls, divine bulls. One of them got loose, ran down to earth and started tearing up the scenery. And she told her son, go catch that bull and kill it. So he caught the bull, but the interesting part is when he caught the bull, it was a beautiful animal, and his heart softened. He didn't want to kill the poor creature. It was only a bull being a bull. So at great effort to himself, he dragged it home to the cave he was living in, tied it up, and gave himself a decent night's rest. Now consider, this is a story that dates from a time when the capture of a wild bull was considered a task not unfitting for a young god.
right.
And while he was asleep, the bull chewed through its rope, got loose, and ran around tearing up the scenery again. So his mother woke up and said, son, I told you, don't just catch that critter, kill it. I have a purpose in mind. So he sadly called up his dogs, picked up his short sword, long knife, ran after the bull, caught up to it, jumped on its back, and sorrowfully stabbed it in the throat and killed it.
Mm.
And when he did, the bull's blood spilled out and instantly started growing grapevines. And where its flesh hit the ground stirred and up grew the first grain plants. And this is a myth which symbolizes the shift from herding to agriculture.
Right.
A myth is a brilliant cube of information. Like
Yes.
So there was, yes, she was right. There was a purpose in killing the bull, and that was to bring a gift of knowledge to humankind, so they could move on from just following the herds to actually keeping in one place, feeding them, raising crops, and starting on the whole long march to civilization that agriculture supports.
Mm.
All that is symbolized in that image of Mithra killing the bull.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. It's interesting, very interesting.
Other things interesting. Okay, look at the similarities between Mithra, who was originally an Anatolian god, which meant that the Greeks would have nothing to do with him, nothing to do with those Asians. but the Romans took him up. So Apollo was strictly a Greek god. Mithra was eventually a Roman one, but still look at the similarities between them. Connection of sun, enlightenment, cattle, and war only when necessary and with reluctance.
Right. All right. Interesting. Interesting. So people can look that up as well and study into that. But I want to ask another question about being a musician. What is the most challenging thing about being a pagan musician?
Sales. No, seriously, there are two sides to selling a product. There's making the product, which I'm
Right.
good at, and marketing it, which I'm not. So I have to leave that to my friends, my publisher, Eli Goldberg and Mary Creasy. And me, I just write the songs and perform them. And I have to trust the rest of it to my friends. The difficulty in writing pagan songs is not really in getting ideas. Paganism is rife with legends, ideas. The whole idea of personifying forces of nature, including human nature, and the way you can elaborate from that. So, it's a great stimulus to the imagination. So there's no problem writing pagan songs.
Right.
The problem is getting them out there.
Well, what is the best thing about being a pagan musician?
As I said, the sheer variety of concepts, images, and the handy way you can make a myth, create a story by personifying the forces involved instead of just being allegories. Treat them as real people. Like, I don't know if you've heard my song "Wanderer," which is on my Avalon Has Risen album. But any experienced pagan would recognize who that wanderer is, the old gray man with one eye and two crows following. Treat him as a person.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, as half of the components of the legend of and the concept of Santa Claus. It gives you a whole broader perspective you can use to convey the idea. Right. Always be kind to travelers, wandering near and far. Always be kind to travelers, you don't know who they are.
Yeah, and that's something I grew up with too. Always be kind to travelers. Mm-hmm. So how can the IPMA help you enhance your musical reality?
Get me more advertising.
More advertising, yeah. That's one of the things that many people don't get, is that when you're an artist and you're doing this and you're creating, marketing yourself and getting yourself out there is a challenge, because
and it's not my skill set. That's why.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. It's not everybody's skill set. Your skill set is doing that, and that's what you excel in, and now you're having to do, you're like, wait a minute, it's foreign territory. So yeah. So and this video will definitely help that as well. Now, do you have a message that you would like to share with all of our listeners?
Well, don't give up. Paganism was fiercely suppressed for centuries, managed to survive underground and sprout occasionally like mushrooms. Most of the plant is mycelium in the soil. Only under the right conditions is it fit a fruit, mushroom. Right. And sometimes it's a matter of hardship. My husband used to grow mushrooms. Never mind what kind of mushrooms. But he found that you could get them a whole planter box full of nice, healthy mycelium, but to get it to fruit, you had to turn down the temperature and extend the dark hours in order to persuade the mushroom, which is the whole plant, that winter's coming, you better fruit, and that would get them to put up the mushrooms and then you harvest them. Pagan is sort of like that, and they spread to the underground of the culture, to a greater or lesser, more or less conscious degree. I believe there are political speakers such as Ben Shapiro, Machine Gun Mouth, who makes a point of warning people that being too aware of personifying nature is dangerous paganism, and that's a dangerous religion because it involves human sacrifice, and right. And the modern monotheistic religions don't.
Right.
So there is this awareness of paganism running underground, and certain sometimes hardships make it appear above the ground and show itself. So don't give up. It's always there. And it doesn't necessarily take hardship. Anytime you see an opportunity, spring up, advertise, find each other, organize. I'm trying to find an organizing, and I'm trying to find a group of pagans here in the West Valley of the Phoenix. We're all very few and far between. We can't get together for face-to-face meetings, which is a pity, because virtual just isn't the same. For one thing, you don't have the psychic connection. There's much to do with the distance. So keep trying to organize groups that meet face-to-face as often as possible. Try to make it for full moons. At least have a party every full moon. A party is always a good excuse to get together. But,
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we're coming into harvest, harvest time in our northern hemisphere. So, this is a good time that a lot of the different peoples like to get together and celebrate. So,
especially when the wine crop comes in.
Oh, yes. Or mead. What is it? Who makes mead is a friend indeed, or something like that. Is that how it goes? But also, Leslie, in our last question here, this is a moment for you. How can people find you? Do you have a website? Do you have all of that information?
I had a website, but apparently it wasn't tended properly. I wasn't aware of it enough. It got taken down. Then I have a blog site, and in trying to get Gmail to give me my accurate email address, my blog site got taken down. I have a friend, another pagan, who's coming out in October, is going to help me put my blog site back up. Other than that, you can reach me on my Facebook page, and you can also reach my publishers, Prometheus Music. That's Eli Goldberg, who actually sells the records. And let's see, Eli Goldberg, Prometheus Music, produces and sells the albums, and Mary Creasy of Random Factors Incorporated, she publishes the songbooks and handles the copyrights. And let's see, as my books, they're up on Amazon. So are a lot of my albums. Anything that's in print is up there.
Okay. And you do have a little bit of a presence on YouTube under your name, Leslie Fish.
Oh, yeah. An awful lot of people have, without my knowledge, but certainly with my gratitude, have posted a lot of my songs as videos on YouTube.
Right. We just got to make sure that they put up the information on how to find your album so they can purchase it to help you out. That's the biggest thing that a lot of people don't understand nowadays, is that by purchasing CDs, or even if some people have that streaming service where they can download the songs and stuff, that's how artists make money. That's how artists can survive, is we have to actually purchase their product. So they can't just keep giving us free stuff all the time. We have to actually show our gratitude to the artist as well. And that's a big thing of mine too, is making sure that we show gratitude to our artists by purchasing their music or their, whatever form of art they may be doing at that time. So
It's also a point in my hat.
yeah.
No, I've done enough busking where I
Mhm.
sit down on a library lawn and start singing the hat in front of me.
Right.
And people passing by, a lot of them just sort of look, smile, and pass on. Smarter ones would toss a change or even a buck into the hat.
Right.
And I'd always smile at them. Of course, one advantage of singing live is that you could take requests, and that helps.
Yes.
When you take a request, they're more likely to toss $1 in your hat than a quarter.
Yes. Yes.
But you've got
Well,
to have perfect interaction with your audience. There's no way to avoid that.
right. I mean, yeah. And I did see a lot of artists during like 2020 and 2021, especially doing a lot of house shows, like charging, getting a Zoom like we're doing now and charging people to come in and doing a concert.
What I usually do is when I went to house parties, I
Mhm.
on my albums and stick
Right.
it on a table, and so much for the album. And that was another way to do it. Technically, I was singing for free, but buy an album if you like it.
Right. Right. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you so much, Leslie, for joining us here on International Pagan Music Association. I invite you all to go check out her music, to buy her album. She has some wonderful music. And again, thank you so much, Leslie Fish, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Many happy returns anytime.